Well, happy Sabbath, boys and girls. Welcome to our mission adventure. Well, this will be the closing story that I have for you as we finish our kids' camp meeting. And it's about lost and found. Have you ever lost something and then you prayed about it and you looked all for it, and then when you found it, you were just thanking God so much for that? Well, I want to talk to you about being lost and found. You know, I have a daughter that lives up in the Asheville area, and she lost her dog, and my grandchildren were so sad. That's a picture of the dog. They posted signs all over the Asheville area trying to find that dog last week. And they were looking everywhere for 5 days. People were praying, and my wife and my daughter and other people were combing the woods all around the Asheville area looking for that dog, following all the leads that they could until that final day when all of a sudden they came across little Belle. And my daughter was just so happy and tears of joy in holding that little puppy again as she found him. Have you ever found something that was lost? I want to talk to you about lost and found today. Jesus told 3 stories about being lost and about being found. And in every one of those stories, at the end of each story, there was a party, there was a rejoicing, there were tears of joy, and there was excitement at the end of each of those stories. In the first story, Jesus tells the story of a lost sheep, a lost lamb. And Jesus is the good shepherd. And he tells the story of a shepherd that had 100 sheep, but one of those little lambs just kind of went missing and wandered away. And as that lamb just wandered away, that lamb got lost, and the shepherd left all the other sheep safely at home and went looking everywhere until that lamb was found. And then, the shepherd didn't stop. Jesus does that with us. When we're lost, he looks for us. He's looking everywhere for us. And just like that little lamb that was rescued, and the shepherd was so happy, Jesus is always happy when his little children come back home, when he finds them and he can safely bring them home. That was the first story that Jesus told in Luke, the 15th chapter of the Bible. And in Luke chapter 15, verse 6, he says, "Rejoice with me, for I have found my sheep that was lost." Well, the second story is the parable of a lost coin. There was a woman that had lost a very, very valuable coin. It was worth a lot of money, and she looked everywhere, all over the house, in every single corner. She even just put her hands on the ground and just looked everywhere. Where could that coin possibly be lost? Now, the coin didn't know it was lost, but the woman sure knew it was lost. And so she swept the house everywhere until one day she saw something shiny, and she finally found that lost coin. And Jesus tells the story that the woman was so excited that she called all her friends and said, "That lost coin that I was looking for is now found." And she was just rejoicing. So sometimes, boys and girls, we may not even know that we're lost, but there is someone that's looking out for us, and Jesus is always looking out for us, and he does everything to try to find us and bring us home. That's what the lost coin is all about. And finally, there's a story about a lost son. Sometimes people call that son the Prodigal Son. This son didn't get lost because he just forgot where his home was. He got lost because he left his home. He left his family. And sometimes we make decisions to leave Jesus and go a different direction because Satan may tempt us in different ways. And so there was a son that told his father, give me all my part of the money. I want to go home. I want to go away. I want to have fun. I want to have, all the fun in the world, because I don't want to just stay home here. It's boring at home. And so the son took his money from his dad, and he went away, and the Bible tells us that he wasted his money. He went to, everywhere. He had parties, and he just had lots of friends, and as long as he had money, he had lots of friends. But he wasted all that money until the money was completely gone. And when that money was gone, he couldn't find a job anywhere. He said, how am I going to get some more money? And finally he found a job. The only job that he could find was a job feeding the pigs. And he was feeding the pigs, and even he thought, as he was feeding those pigs, I am so hungry. I hardly have enough money to feed myself. I used to have lots of money, and I would take my friends out to eat all the time, and we would have a party. But now, as he was looking at those pigs, he was wishing he could have some of the food that the pigs were eating. And he said, this is so silly. I left my beautiful home. I left my home where I had everything. I had a nice family. I had lots of food. I had a nice bed to sleep in. And here I am sleeping with these pigs, and the owner of the pigs won't even let me eat the food that the pigs are eating. And then the Bible says that the young boy, he came to his senses. He said, I'm going to go back home to my dad, and I'm going to tell him, I'm so sorry, Dad. I made a terrible mistake. I'll work for you, Dad. I'm sorry I took all your money. I'll work for you. Would you please just let me come back as a servant in your house? But that's not what happened. That father was looking down the road, and when he saw his boy returning back home, the boy said, Father, I'm so sorry. But before he could even say anything to his father just hugged him and said, oh, son, I'm so glad you're home. And he said, my lost son is back home. We're going to put a party on, and we're going to celebrate. We're going to rejoice that my lost son came back home. Jesus looks for us when we wander away from him, when we go away from him, when we make decisions to walk away from Jesus. He's always looking for us. Jesus never forces us to come back. But that day, when we do return back to him, is a day of rejoicing. The father said, this son of mine was dead and is alive again. He was lost and is found. So that's the three stories that Jesus told about lost and found. Of the story of a lost lamb that was found, the story of a lost coin that was found, and the story of a lost son that was found. Many years ago, far away in the country that I came from India, there ruled very, very many kings called Maharajas. Here's a picture of what a Maharaja looked like. They were very powerful men. They were like kings. And you see this map of India that you see on the picture, it was divided up into sections. India was divided up into various sections, and there were Maharajas that ruled over each section of India. They were very powerful, and they were very, very rich. Those Maharajas had lots of servants. And you know what? They lived in mansions that you and I could possibly never even imagine look like this. This is one of those mansions. This is called the Palace of a Maharaja. And you go into this, and there's lots of servants, there's beautiful gardens, and it's very luxurious. These Maharajas were so wealthy and so rich. Once upon a time, a Maharaja had a young son who was the prince. In other words, that prince would become the next Maharaja when the Maharaja died. He would rule over that state in India. That young prince, you don't know him, but all of you know something about him. Every one of you, most of you listening this Sabbath morning knows something about this prince. You're probably saying, what? I've never seen this prince before. Well, neither have I. But I know something about this prince, and you know something about this prince. This prince was walking outside of his palace one day. And as he was walking, he saw a picture. It was a picture of 3 crosses. And he asked a man, he said, "What is that? Why are those 3 men hanging on that cross, on those crosses? They must have done something very bad." And so a man tried to explain the story to them. The man said, "You know, that person that is hanging in the middle is really God. His name was Jesus. And he died on a cross." He says, "Why would he die on a cross?" "Well," he said, "you mean you have a dead God that you're worshiping? Who are those other 2 people?" He said, "Well, they were thieves. And they were supposed to die. But they also killed and crucified the man in the middle who said that he was the Son of God." He says, "Really? So your God is dead?" "Oh, no. When the sun came up on Sunday morning, he rose from the grave. He let himself be hung on that cross because he wanted to die for all of our sins." And so the man told him the whole story about Jesus. And as he told him the story about Jesus, he said, "You know what? I worship all kinds of ugly-looking gods, but they're just stone, and they're all painted, and I don't really know why I worship them, but they don't speak to me. I take them food, and I take them incense, and I take them all kinds of things, but they don't do anything. Because if I don't take them all those things, and if I don't put flowers in front of those idols, my dad tells me that those gods might put a curse on me." And the man put his arm around the prince and said, "Sir, young boy, Mr. Prince, that's not the way that God works. He loves you. He loves you so much that he gave his life for you. And he rose again because he was God. And he could lay down his life and he could rise again. And he rose again, and guess what? He's coming back very soon. That all who believe in him will live in heaven forever." And so as he heard the story about Jesus and all the stories, the little young prince fell in love with Jesus. He went back to his house and he told his dad that he had decided to follow Jesus. And that's why he wrote the words of this song, "I have decided to follow Jesus." Now, guess what? The father was very, very angry with his son. He said, "No, you are not following Jesus. You are a Hindu, and you will worship Ram just the way your dad worships Ram." But Dad, that's just an idol. It's just a piece of stone. This was someone who came to this world, and he died for me, and he's not dead anymore. He's not a stone. He's not made out of metal, and I don't have to put flowers and incense and food in front of him. This Jesus is coming back, and I love him so much because he loved me. And I heard that he died for me because he loved me that much. And so, Father, I've decided to follow Jesus. The father looked at his son very angrily. And he said, "Now listen to me, son. I want to tell you something right now. If you decide to follow this Jesus, you take off that princely robe that you have. And you leave this house. Do you remember that time that I heated up a pot of tea and I showed that man that I could heat up that pot of tea by burning money because I had so much money? Guess what? All of that money would have been yours. But if you follow this Jesus, you're not having any of that money." Son, not only will you lose your money, you will lose the title of being Prince of India. And not only will you lose that title, you will lose your family, because from then on, you are no longer my son. You will not have a father or a mother. You will have lost your family. You will have lost your money. You will have lost this palace. You will have lost everything. The son put his head down and he said, Father, Jesus gave everything for me, and I want to give him my life. He walked out of there, and as he walked out of there, he spent the night alone in the house of the man that had told him the story of Jesus. And he got out a piece of paper, and he wrote a song that you and I know very well. And wherever you are watching this story right now, I hope you'll sing it with me. It's a song that all of you know very well, and you know the words of the song. And anywhere you see this song, if it's in a songbook or anything else, you look up at the top corner and it says that this song was written by a prince of India who left everything that he had to gain everything that Jesus had for him. With Jesus, you have everything. Without Jesus, you have nothing. Sing it with me. I have decided to follow Jesus. I have decided to follow Jesus. I have decided to follow Jesus. No turning back, no turning back. The cross before me, the world behind me. The cross before me, the world behind me. The cross before me, the world behind me. No turning back, no turning back. Though no one join me, still I will follow. Though no one join me, still I will follow. Though no one join me, still I will follow. No turning back, no turning back. Jesus longs for the day when all of his children will be safely home. He wants us not to be lost, but to be found. Will you give him your heart today? As we close our kids' camp meeting, and you have shared this time with me on our mission adventures as we've gone around to various parts of the world. And these stories have come from India and Sri Lanka and the Solomon Islands and England and Russia. I wonder, someday soon, we will all be together from every part of the world in that beautiful home that Jesus is preparing for each one of us. Jesus is calling you to follow him. Let's always choose Jesus. That way we'll never be lost. We'll always be found in Jesus.